Hello and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host Isabella, and our very loyal listeners, they probably noticed that there have been some changes. So yeah, let's dive into that first, and then I'm going to speak about the topic of the day. So from now on, this podcast will be hosted by me alone. And it is called the Sober Curious Diaries and no longer a double O. So also make sure if you're following us on Instagram, we will still share updates on the Sober Curious crew handle. And I'd love to exchange with you on my account, on my personal account called grape.journey. So make sure to follow me there. We will cover topics in the podcast like personal development stuff, relationship content, holistic health view, and transformational stories. So basically everything that I'm really passionate about. And I will still update you on the relevant product news in the drinking business and keep categories such as the drink of the week and the sober celeb of the week. So shortly, everything that we as a sober curious community need to grow, from mindset to practical advice. I might change the language to German for a few episodes. Okay, it's going to be Denglish, let's be honest, to be a little bit closer to the German fellows. And just to be clear on what you cannot expect in a podcast, I am not a sober coach. I have a wine background, I love the product and just the art of wine, but I am on a mission to show you how to actually listen to your body, to know about the effects of alcohol, and then decide consciously when and how you enjoy it. I also won't go into the drinks business news in too much detail. If there is a new interesting formula or a drink or any other relevant information, I will let you know. But apart from that, if you're looking for an in-depth, regular news stuff, you can add Alex's podcast, Pinot and Pixel, to your podcast routine. I highly recommend it. Okay, so let's get started. This episode is about a topic that I've wanted to address for so long. And now today, finally it's the day. And it's about dating. Dating under the influence or not the influence of alcohol. And before that, I want to bring some news. So for all the Munich people, we have something special in Munich now, which is the first ever non-alcoholic beer garden near Central Station, because they wanted to have a stop to this binge drinking and crime in the city center. And I, just realized a very beautiful place for everyone that just enjoys time with their friends and family. You can bring your own Brotzeit as usual in those beer gardens. It's called Die Null, the Zero. It's a really nice project. So if you're in Munich, just check it out, stop by there. Now I'm really excited to go into our topic. First of all, it can be helpful to have a little bit of liquid courage before a first date. But alcohol and dating is not always the best match. I've been there. I've had first dates and follow-up dates and online dates where I've never seen the person before. And it always seemed to be a little bit easier and more loosened up with alcohol involved. But then there were also these nights where I'd wake up and evaluate what happened and process how I felt and conclude that I had done things in the influence of alcohol that I wouldn't normally do. When you're not drinking with someone, you're not blind to red flags. You're not drinking to feel these warm, fuzzy feelings and think you have a special connection. Because drinking magnifies the feelings of liking someone. But it also brings up confusion around how they're treating you. A guy I dated recently doesn't drink anymore at all. And yeah, it was just really surprising for me because I was like, yeah, we can maybe get a wine or anything. And he was like, yeah, you have to drink by yourself. I don't drink anymore. And I think that is so powerful and confident, and it positively surprised me. I didn't want to drink anyways, so I was actually really glad that he said that. And maybe that is true for you and your dates as well. But I must admit, I caught myself asking why, because I thought it was so interesting and yeah, just not expected. He also told me that guys mainly drink to approach girls. I didn't know that. And let me tell you, guys, women don't want to get approached by drunk guys. At least not if they're really, really like drunk. It's not really appealing. And it also makes me as a woman question whether the guy actually means it or if he's just drunk and doesn't know about it anymore the next day. And with alcohol, also anyone can do it. Just think about how it makes you so much more proud of yourself when you are scared to do something, like scared to approach a girl, but then you do it anyway. And it also sends this message to the girl that this is really a step for you, and you took that in a leap of faith to really, show her that she is special. And you will be very proud, because eventually it also doesn't really matter what the boy or girl answers, even if they reject you. I think the self-confidence that you build up when you do stuff out of your comfort zone is just beautiful. And with alcohol, you only numb your feelings, and you also get this tunnel vision. I know that from myself. Sometimes when I don't even notice any guys or girls anymore. I'm just in my own world. And I just imagine that for boys it's the same. The last person I dated was a really good guy, but it just wasn't it. And I really take pride that I didn't stick with it when I already knew it. Because I think when I was still drinking a little bit more, I just don't really see the red flags. I don't really listen to my gut. I just numb it all down. But I was probably thinking, whatever, we're just having fun, and delay the dealing with the problems to the next day. And here's the thing, when you drink alcohol, it really messes with your brains. It lowers your inhibitions. It makes us say and do things that we might not normally do, in a positive but also in a negative way. It can really cloud our judgment. One guy that I dated once, it has been a few years, he really seemed to think it was appropriate to kiss me on the first date in a bar. And I was just so surprised by how he misread the situation. We were nowhere near a kiss, as we were just getting to know us. So it was just not the situation. And he really made it totally awkward. And then I felt like I had to explain myself why I didn't allow that kiss to happen. And it was just so strange. Obviously, I didn't see him again. When we drink, our bodies release dopamine, which is the feel-good hormone. It is also a neurotransmitter. I'm going to explain that a little bit later. And this the release of dopamine can make us feel more attracted to someone than we actually are. You know that when you sometimes think, like as you put on rose-colored goggles, you think, the person is not that unattractive. But when you are sober, you're like, what did I do there? And the thing is, the attraction can fleet so fast. The next morning, when the dopamine wears off slowly and the hangover sets in, we are left wondering, oh shit, what was I doing? And it's also super uncreative. I mean, anyone can suggest a date with just going to a bar or have a drink somewhere. But it's actually super uncreative. So I'm gonna give you some ideas for dates in general, but also dates that don't involve as much alcohol or that you can do completely sober. But first off, I want to explain why dating sober really is a better idea. And I'm not saying you have to be completely sober. You can have a glass of wine or an Aperol Spritz. I mean, there's nothing against that to say. I'm just saying, don't get drunk, don't get lost in the situation and order the second bottle of wine. And I know we've all been there. So what are the reasons to not drink as much on a first date or stay completely sober? First of all, clarity. You can actually remember the conversation and the person is not just a vague, a blurry thing. This is also something that has to do with respect, and it can also be very embarrassing if the person tells you something and then the next day you don't really remember it. And it can also be helpful. I mean, if you have a really deep conversation with someone and you want to remember it because it really did something with you, then you want to remember these words. Second, the authenticity. You can only show up as your true self if you are not beer or wine or tequila fueled. I also feel it's completely normal to be shy on the first date, and sometimes there might be this awkward silence or you don't really know how to behave, but just sit in this discomfort. It will be easier, and just don't put as much pressure on yourself to always have like the perfect answer, because it's your true self and you want to have that person really get to know you, because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't give you any value if the person falls in love with someone that is not really you. And lastly, you will be able to make much better decisions. So you won't drunk text your ex or agreeing on going home with the person, although you maybe wouldn't do it when you were sober, or agree on a second date and then have to find excuses to not do it once you sobered up and felt like, oh my God, it's not that guy. And I'm also not saying you have to be completely sober to date successfully. But I just want to encourage you to try a few sober dates. And yeah, as said, I have a few examples later. Just see how it feels to connect with someone without the buzz. It might be really surprising how much more genuine and deep and fulfilling the experience can be. And if you decide to have a drink, just keep it slow, sip, don't jug it. Don't let the peer pressure force you into drinking more than you maybe want. And most importantly, be mindful how the effects of alcohol are on your body. It should be fun, and it shouldn't be this commitment to drink when you're on a date. There are so many more options that are really nice. For example, I had a bike tour around Stuttgart, which was just the perfect day activity and doing something together and experiencing something together is much more bonding than to sit in a bar and just stare in each other's eyes, because that's when the awkward silence is sometimes occurring. Not for me, I rarely experience that, but I know that this is maybe not for everyone. So just embrace the gift to fully evaluate if someone is right for you and not be blinded by red flags that you don't really see when you are influenced. And it's really worth it. Try it sometimes, get over the uncomfortable feeling and find someone you can connect with and have feelings for without drinking alcohol. I think it also comes a little bit from our youth and how we used to drink when we were maybe 16, 17, probably a little bit more than we do now. And we had this thing going on with someone, or we had a boyfriend, and it would be those times where we drink together and then have this extra affectionate feeling about these people, and just feel like we are on cloud 7, although it might have just been the alcohol. So we always want this feeling again, and we confuse it with real love and are always seeking for that romanticism that we found when we were young. But maybe it's just this state of being and the influence of some of these drinks. Backscreen lemon, for example. So that can really lead us to connect relationships and love with drinking. When you drink with a partner, that's when you feel you're magnified and you're loosened up, and you also start to find that person very sexy, and you do all that stuff. But I really think it's worth to untangle from all of that and have this exciting feeling without any substance. The reason why we sometimes tend to overshare when we drink, we probably all know that, is because there is a slight suppression of neurons in the prefrontal cortex, the area that is responsible for thinking and planning and suppressing of impulsive behavior. That's why we sometimes behave like animals, and our sex drive is much more active, and we are having this really loose tongue and say things that might be a little bit inappropriate, but it's just because of this suppression. The reason why I say this is I don't want to tell you why alcohol might be bad and might affect you in a negative way in your dating or relationship life. I really want to give you the scientific background. I really want you to understand what happens in your brain so that you understand the fundamentals, and then you can still decide what you take for yourself and what you leave. So alcohol has a really, really strong effect in suppressing the neural networks of the memory formation and storage. That's why we forget what happened when we drink. And then there's these neurotransmitters that I spoke a little bit about earlier. So neurotransmitters, and also from the previous episodes, I think I love that stuff. Neurotransmitters are these chemicals that allow our nerve cells, for example, neurons, and one neurotransmitter used by many neurons throughout the brain is serotonin. Serotonin is this feeling that gives us very high elevated mood, a very good self-image. And studies have shown that alcohol exposure elevates serotonin levels in the brain. And this results in this heightened perception of how cool we are and how we see ourselves. And that's why we are sometimes a little bit more, brave and risk taking than we are when we are sober. And then there is GABA, which still reminds me of a monster from out of space. GABA leads to, a state of sedation and decreased anxiety. That's why we feel more at ease. We are less scared to speak our mind and just sometimes say stuff that is better unsaid. When the alcohol is converted to acetaldehyde, it disrupts your mood circuitry, making some of these neurotransmitters really hyperactive, which is also coined as early inhibition release, until it plummets and the energized mood is suppressed, losing alertness and arousal. There is evidence that shows that alcohol affects the brain function by interacting with multiple neurotransmitter systems, and with that disrupting the delicate balance between inhibitory and excitatory neurotransmitters. I know that's very detailed, but I just want to give it a full picture. So short-term alcohol exposure moves this balance in favor of the inhibitory influences. But then when you continue drinking, the brain tries to compensate by shifting the balance back toward an equilibrium. Very difficult word. That's why the dopamine rush is often followed by sometimes even depressive states. Alcohol induces a disruption in the gut microbiome by killing bacteria and the healthy gut microbiome, which may ultimately cause leaky gut. And just think about it. I mean, if you have a disrupted gut microbiome and you want to make decisions from your gut, and we all know how the gut and how well we feel in our tummy is affecting our whole mood, then this just adds to the negative effects of drinking alcohol. And then also when it comes to sleep, if you sleep even after one drink, you don't have the same quality as without alcohol. Because when alcohol is present in the bloodstream, the whole architecture of sleep is disrupted and gives you less REM sleep and more deep sleep, but it will be less peaceful and it can be disrupted. If you're interested in that, by the way, listen to an episode we made on sleep and alcohol. And lastly, what's really interesting is that also the drink selection matters. I know this is a little bit of an excursus right now, but I thought I'd let you know, because it's not only about the sugar content, as we discussed previously. So espresso martini is the worst idea to drink in the evening when you have a night out. It's also the nitrates and other ingredients that are helping to get you a hangover. So beer is least likely to cause a hangover, but brandy is at the top of the list. Brandy is the drink that South Africans always drink with Coke. Tastes good, but now that I know this, I don't know if I want to drink it that often again. I might stick with wine, which is also causing hangover. It's basically in the middle. So first there's beer, then there's vodka and gin. So they are set to produce less hangover. Then there's white wine, whiskey, rum, red wine. Yeah, we all know the red wine headache. And then lastly, brandy. Okay, back to dry dating. So a few tips. If you are really completely sober and you want to have a sober date, let them know before. I think it really helps to save you time and energy explaining to your date why you are not drinking. Some people are really not understanding of that, and then you can decide beforehand if you still want to meet the person, and you also don't have to justify it. But be prepared for questions, and I mean, people are usually just curious. So I think depending on what your reason is, you can also be very open about it. And it has this positive effect that it will also weed out people that aren't good for you, because it takes courage to not drink. And people who don't admire that in you and don't appreciate that in you, they aren't your person, because usually that only shows that they are too weak to go on a date not drinking, or generally using alcohol to cope with their insecurities, which is nothing you'd want to settle for. All right, and now for some date ideas in summer that you could do that don't necessarily include alcohol. If you want to go outdoors or do something sporty, you could, for example, hike with your date or go for a bike ride. That can be so much fun. Or you could combine it with a picnic in the park, and you just grab some nice snacks. Or if you live close to a beach, oh my God, go to the beach. Play paddle, play tennis. Also table tennis, I think, is a really nice date. I listened to a podcast episode from Beste Freundinnen, and one of them also suggested kayaking or paddleboarding, which sounded a bit, extreme for a first date, but I wanted to add it to the list. Or just check out in your region if there are any concerts or festivals that you can go to together, or outdoor cinemas in summer are also really, really great idea. If you're older, maybe a botanical garden or even a museum. There are so many cool ideas. Sometimes there are also art exhibitions. I would totally go to that, and it doesn't require alcohol at all. Or you could also pack a blanket and go stargazing. That's just too romantic. You don't need any lubricant for that. Social lubricant, not the other one. Sorry for that double meaning. Then you could maybe go to a soccer play or to a musical, like basketball. Oh my God, that's something that will arouse you so much that you don't need anything else. Or a comedy show, or you could go to even a local farmer's market or something like that, or take a cooking class. I think learning and creating something together really helps you to bond. I would not go into the cinema on a first date. I have no idea why people think this is a good idea, because if you don't want to get to know the other person at all, then it could be a good idea. But then I don't know why you should date that person. Or if you are more on the adventurous, active side, you could also go bouldering or climbing, or rent a scooter, do something like that, or jog together through the park and combine the exercise that you wanted to do that day anyways and the date. And also you don't have to talk the whole time, because you can just say, I'm out of breath, I can't anymore. What else? You could go, I had a date recently that was really, really cool, because we just drove around with his car, a very fast car, and I just love riding fast cars and being the passenger. And then we had a drink. I had an alcohol-free Radler. And we didn't miss alcohol at all. Or you could get one of these card games where you really get to know the other person with those questions that are on it. There's, for example, in Amsterdam, there was a bookstore which had these kinds of like really self-development books and card games. And I think this is a great idea to just explore and talk about that stuff, because then you already have a topic. Or you could just go, for a coffee or a tea, but I think that's not really something that I have to mention. And maybe have a plan B for all these very active activities. All right. Now to our sober celebrity of the week. For this week, it's Tom Holland. We all know the Spider-Man guy. And yeah, he has been sober for a few years, and he also said it was the best decision of his life. And I think it's just always so inspirational to see how these hard-working, high-achieving, very good-looking and very interesting people, how they don't need alcohol at all. So yeah, it's just a good example. And last but not least, my drink of the week. I really like Aperol Sour, but without the orange juice, because I don't really like it if it's sweet. For me, it's sufficient to just have Aperol, and I really love the alcohol-free version of Aperol if you want to have just a nice drink on a Monday evening. And on the weekend, you can switch it up with real Aperol, but it doesn't have to, And then just add some lemon juice and a lot of ice. And I think that's it. Soda, yeah. Okay, that's all for today's episode. I hate cutting. I have no idea how to cut, so maybe this episode won't be cut at all. If you have any funny or embarrassing dating stories, let me know. Text me on grape.journey. I would love to hear them. And if you liked the episode, leave me a like or follow, and don't forget to rate the episode. Until then, start your week right by making conscious decisions.